I just love when he does that. Hello, everybody, and welcome out to Monday night. We have a wonderful show all set up for you. And of course, it's because you that we get to do this. So thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
We're back from spring break.
We are.
We took a break.
2 weeks off. It was like, I didn't know what to do. I was going to go to Florida and I wasn't allowed.
No,
so I stayed here.
What did you do, John?
I have been like on cloud 9 because just a little while ago, it was announced that there's going to be a TV series released based on the music of Huey Lewis.
So it's going to be what? A 15-minute
the most
show
awesome, epic show
15-minute show maybe?
ever.
You know, I'm wondering if we have to change our drinking game.
Ever. To think about this, you take all of the music of Huey Lewis, there's an endless amount of music, by the way, from Huey. You put that, you dump that
into... it ends. There is a limited amount. It does not go on forever.
Endless. Endless. Put it together, endless. You put it all into your playlist on Megaseg, and the next thing you know, you've got a party waiting to happen. Just like that.
I thought the Huey Lewis TV show was called Back to the Future.
Well, that was the movie. And now it's coming to TV. It's going to be so great. So great.
Wasn't that Kenny Loggins?
No, that was the guy who he did Caddyshack, and he was the one that blew like gophers up or something. I don't know.
Yeah. The only guy who did like soundtracks in the 80s.
Yeah, the only guy. Why am I watching that? There we go. So, tonight, recently I was involved with a wedding. We actually went mobile and did an event.
What?
And yeah, this is crazy. So there's a few takeaways from the wedding, and there's some areas, and I've talked to some guys from Iowa specifically because I've got quite a few friends down there, and they've been pretty much doing events consistently throughout. But there's areas like Minnesota where, yes, there have been a wedding here or there, but very few because we had such tight limits. And I think out in Massachusetts, I think I just talked to Rob, and I think they've just gone to 100 people. Rob Peters said that they finally were. Otherwise, I think they were at 10. New Jersey's opening up a little bit with more. What are you guys at where you're at, Dan?
I don't remember because they just kind of recently changed, and we've got an indoor versus outdoor scenario.
Wednesday, it goes to 50% capacity for indoor and 75%. Not Wednesday. I'm sorry. That would be Sunday.
It's Monday, isn't it? The 5th?
Yeah, it goes. Well, it said infected the 4th, but that's Sunday, and I'm not sure how they do that. But it's 50% indoor, 75% outdoor. But I have no problem making this guess that it will change.
Well, but here's the thing, though, because that doesn't apply to events, and that's what gets weird. So that your numbers that you just quoted were restaurants and bars.
For my side of it, yeah.
Right. But there's a completely different side for weddings, which is not at the 50% or 75% capacity. It's more, I want to say it was just 50 or 75. They didn't fully open.
No.
I'm wrong on my figure. I probably am.
No, I think you're right. I'm gonna look it up while you guys are doing that. So go ahead and talk.
Yeah,
and see what I can find it. But the important thing is that it is at least trying to start in some manner or another.
Exactly. Yes. And you've got different, depending upon where you're at, different rules across the country as things are going on. And you've got people who are trying to find ways to be creative to have events, whether it's under the tent outside, to doing some things with that. Some situations they can have food, but not indoors, because as soon as they brought the food indoors for an event, the numbers went down. There's a DJ who said that there's a couple of venues where they've got a tent outside and everyone goes outside and eats, and they have to consume all their food and things outside because that they can legally do up to a point. And as long as there's no food inside, then they can have that 50% ratio. So there's going to be a lot of different rules out there. And as MJ said, it's probably going to change 7 times here in the next month. It's just kind of some of the things we're working with. And I think you can start to see, especially in Minnesota where we're just starting to open, you can see some of that having an effect on your events, specifically on the wedding dance or the wedding reception side of things. So we're going to kind of dig into that a little bit and talk about a few of the observations and what what our thoughts are as we're going to be going forward on those different areas. So, so it's been we've had 3 weeks ago was the last time we had a Monday night show. So we should recap the world in the last 3 weeks.
So not a whole lot has happened. We've started to open a little bit more. A boat got stuck, and then I heard it got unstuck.
It's
tonight.
unstuck. Yep. So it's headed back to the.
We're no longer going to have a TP shortage.
No,
that was everybody's fear. This ship apparently had all the toilet paper on it, and it was stuck.
All of it. It had all.
They just need a big plunger. That's what happens when you get your TP stuck. Big plunger.
See, I was wondering why they didn't just go and you take a stick, you stick it under there, and you pry up. That's what we did when we got stuff stuck.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's actually quite humorous though in some ways, because finally a meme came around today, which took a picture from one of our local amusement parks, and they said anybody who knows where this picture is from understands exactly how this boat can get completely stuck. And it's a boat ride that we have at our amusement that you turn right and it takes forever to turn right. So then then by the time it starts turning right, you turn left and it's still going right because it hasn't corrected itself. And you get like, you're the whole way you're going down like this, like through the little canal. And it happens.
It definitely does. Unfortunately, trying to put a boat up on a trailer and seeing how it doesn't want to cooperate, especially if you have a crosswind.
So MJ, did you find our figure for PA?
They have several of them.
Yeah, and that's right there was part of the reason why, because if it's an event place like a concert and that kind of thing, it has one rule. And so one of the questions I heard posed was, can we classify these weddings as events that the guests are coming to, and therefore it's a different type of party, and therefore it has a different.
This is where it gets really weird, and I had to actually look this up the other day, that effective April 4th, including what changes the curfew on alcohol, because we had a curfew here that you could not sell alcohol past, if I'm correct, it was 10 or 11 p.m.
10 or 11, yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be moved, if I'm correct, till midnight, if I'm correct. Restaurants, here's the weird part. Restaurants that self-certify can operate at 75% capacity. Otherwise, the limit is 50% capacity. And the self-certify is nothing more than you showing the ability to clean things constantly. I actually had to go look up, and that self-certification has been in motion and in play for a long time. So that isn't something they're just adding with this. Casinos, which I'm sorry, but the casino has been operating at 100% since the beginning.
Yeah, at least I have here too.
Capacities for casinos. Where was it at there? I just read it there. Capacities for types of businesses will rise too. Gyms, malls, museums, personal services. Casinos can all bump up to the 75%. Outdoor venues can operate at 50%, while many indoor venues are capped at 25%. That's why it's like different everywhere. Mm-hmm. And John and Dan and I were talking today, and I was telling about a friend of mine who does events for the elderly, like entertainment events. There's community centers, stuff like that. They're doing a rule that you have to show that you're vaccinated before you can come in. All the staff are vaccinated. Anybody that steps in the building has to show that they are vaccinated, or they can't come to the event. And that's the thing that I'm wondering where it's going to come to, because over in Europe and Italy and all that, they're doing things with dinners to where, a restaurant on a Monday night, you have to show that you've been vaccinated, and it's no mask, wide open. But Tuesday and Thursday, it's only a certain amount of people. Everybody has to wear a mask. You sit in groups. So this is going to get more and more blurred.
Complex.
Yeah, I think complex, I think, is a good way to describe it as we go forward. And
yeah.
And that's probably, kind of bouncing back to one of the things that I observed at this wedding, and even as we're taking calls. We've had more wedding calls here in the last 2 weeks than I have had in the 2 months prior. It seems like all of a sudden there was a wall we hit after that Christmas rush of cases. It was just like everything stopped. It's amazing to me is how political this still is. That how people are the whole mask thing and the social distancing thing and the tables, they're at the wedding when they were setting up the room and moving the tables, and one person says, oh, let's keep the tables, so their people are 6 feet apart. Tables are that kind of gap. And there's someone else in the room who's like, oh, we can't do that, even though the room was designed to be that way because they didn't have that many guests. And if you put the tables too close together, then you get this big open spot. So having the tables spaced out was needed just because of it would have been that way in any other year and no one would have complained. But because it's so political, people looked at that and said, oh, look at all that space. It's because of the 6 feet thing. And that's just, stupid. And it's a fake, whatever. I didn't expect that to continue truthfully this long. I thought we would get to a point and we'd just be, okay, this is what it is. Let's get done. Let's get beyond, and life is good. But we aren't there.
So, John, as we talk about this event, I would like you to kind of paint a little bit of a picture for this, because with Minnesota, as you kind of alluded, you haven't really been open. So was this something that you had lined up, or was this, and you were able to cross fingers and it stayed? Or was this something that kind of came together pretty last minute because, hey, it's opened up and I'm starting to get those calls. Hey, we can crank this out now.
Yeah, this was not a rescheduled. We've got a couple of rescheduled events coming up, and we'll talk about these rescheduled things because Rob made reference to that, I believe, in the last show also. So this was something after the first of the year. Maybe it was in December we started touching base, and it was like, okay, so. We don't know what March is going to bring. And it was one of those things that the bride wanted to have do this type of a thing. But initially when we talked, I think our limit was 25 people is all that we could have in the venue at that time in this specific room. Then, and that was actually, I think 25 people with food. And then we got through that period. Then it bumped up to 50, and then it became 50% of the room within, I think, the last 3 weeks of the 2 weeks of the event. So it started out as an evolving event, really, and it's the bride. She's like, well, what's it going to cost to do? And it's like, well, my big package is just doesn't make sense. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to be somewhere over in here, but to really try to say that this is what you're going to buy, and if we can't do the event, you got to still pay me this amount, is not going to happen either. This is one of the few events I didn't take a retainer, and part of that was because if something happened, I didn't want to be holding a retainer. And then let's say that my youngest child has been out of school. He's had 2 weeks of quarantining, or 2 different 2-week periods of quarantine in 2021 so far, and it's like if all of a sudden something happens and then my children, have come down with it, or I get sick and I can't make it, or we're still in that quarantine time, I didn't want to have to be going and returning a retainer and digging that out of somewhere if it happened to go, forget it and spent it. So there was a lot of just signatures and kind of gentleman agreements of what we're going to do, and a lot of it came in the last 2 weeks of the event is where we started to figure out that, okay, this is what we can do, and this is how it'll all come together. With that, the number I believe that they were expecting was about 125 to 150, somewhere in that ballpark. When I'm talking to the folks when they were setting up with the food, and they figured they were going to have about 100 people in this room, and I think there was some overflow into the next room. They ended up having a percentage of the attendees who didn't show up. They had committed to be there or RSVP'd, from my understanding, but they just didn't show up. And I think this is something that we're going to see. Is I think if we sit there a month out and people are like, yeah, I'm good, I'll go there, and then their neighbor gets sick or something happens, and they're like, oh, this is still out there and it's still real, and I don't know if I want to be taking this chance. They were upset about that. You could definitely see that there was I think the bride was very disappointed that, where are all these people? I heard that a couple of times from other people other than her. You could see it on her face, but I think some of the other family members came out with it. I just think this is going to be the reality for this year. We had it a couple of times even last fall with a couple of the events that I was involved with. People just get cold feet at the last minute, and it's not because they're trying to be evil or mean or anything. It's just the reality of where the people's mental state is going to be. And I think that's going to be throughout the year this year in 2021.
Well, I definitely see you definitely see kind of an attitude adjustment within people. So for example, just kind of if you people watch, there's definitely this air that because the vaccine's out there and we kind of are starting to turn the corner that, and then there's warm weather, everybody's just kind of like has this bright optimistic viewpoint on it. So it feels like we're past it. Like it almost has that feeling like we're it's behind us. And so what I kind of made a comment to you guys before where I've seen more people in the last week to 2 weeks in stores than that without masks on.
Yep.
And the stores aren't pushing an issue. They have the rule out front, but if you walk in, they just let you walk in. And yet, so that I have in the last 3 months put together. So I almost wonder if there's kind of that, like exactly that optimism or like, oh, things are turning the corner. And then exactly what you said, something happens at the local school or, Jimmy up the street, his grandfather just took a really bad turn. Like it suddenly has this, oh my gosh, this really is, okay, I'm going to take my step back and I'm going to kind of hunker down, personally. And I can definitely see guests doing that last minute. That just, I can't imagine being a couple in that situation because like I have no problem paying for, Aunt Susie and Uncle Bob to come to my wedding, but now I just paid out whatever the cost is per plate when they're not even there.
And then they can't, they don't make it and such. And yeah, that's definitely a reality. Randy mentions in the chat room that a lot of the couples are sick of waiting and going through. I've been, there's a couple of weddings we have where that would indeed be the case. An interesting thing that we've got is that a couple of our weddings have canceled for this summer. Last year was going to be a huge summer with pretty much a wedding every weekend, or if not Friday, Saturday. And of course, those were gone. Many of them picked dates. Some of them have canceled again and basically have just pulled the plug completely because they don't want to have to go through it again. And what they're seeing, it started about 2 weeks ago, is, we had the decline and everything was coming down. And everyone was like, okay, the vaccinations were starting to go and yay, everything's going to be starting to look good. Well, I think it was Thursday of last week, I had a call from one of my summer brides, and she's like, okay, we've been watching things and we're seeing that the older people aren't getting it as sick, or not as many, the percentages aren't showing as many of the older folks because they've been vaccinated. But she said the percent of people, the positivity rate is slowly increasing, and it's younger people who are doing it. And the biggest concern of that is the hospital numbers are going back up. So that means that the younger people who are getting sick, they are hitting the hospitals. And she's like, I don't think we can't do our wedding this summer. And it's like, but the state might be completely open by then. She goes, yeah, I just don't think we're going to take that risk. We don't want to be that. And I think you're going to have some people like that. And then you're going to have some people who are, like the couple that I was involved with last fall. They didn't give a crap. They're like, we're here. We're going to party. If you want to wear your mask, go ahead. If any of the guests want to wear their mask, go ahead. But we're not going to. And we're going to do our dollar dance. We're going to do everything and just have it be a regular wedding reception, which of course ended up causing, I think we heard a dozen cases that came out of that wedding last fall. So
that's the thing, that you will have just in life, you have a certain number of people that totally 100% back I'm just going to call it the reality of it, that you can catch it at any age, blah, blah, blah. You have a certain number of people who are, this is all BS, it's all, the government, it's a lie. And then you have the ones in the middle that are just kind of cautious. So along with all the other rules that change, you're going to have people that fit all of those categories too. So it's not going to be a cut and dry thing. I mean, I was looking at the thing that right in the state, Dan, Philadelphia's rules are different than anywhere else in the state. They have a whole separate set of rules in Philadelphia than the rest of us do.
And I think
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
doesn't surprise me at all.
And that's going to have to happen. And a part that's concerning, and we've had this in Minnesota. We've had two counties. One was kind of an urban, or I should say, a suburban county, and one is an outstate county. And there's been all of a sudden a rash of cases in those areas, and they've had to tighten up in those areas. And that's another situation. And we talked about some of this stuff last year, a year ago, when we're like, oh, this is what the future is going to hold. And here we're seeing it now a year later, that we're going to have events that it looks good, and all of a sudden we can't do it. Or we're going to have to, I'm waiting for the time where it's like, well, we can't do it in this county, but we can go 5 miles down the road and do it over there. I think that's going to be a reality for some people. In
this corner of the state, we're right next to Ohio, West Virginia, and Virginia, and I have friends who DJ in bars in West Virginia, and it's open. I mean, they're not allowed to have a dance floor, but they can have people there all sitting down, a laud capacity. We can't have that here. We can't even run till 11 p.m. So that's less than an hour drive to go and party. And then if you run into people there who have it, you bring it back home. So there's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to be considered in the future. I think I'm going to be talking about this Wednesday night. I'm trying to see if I can get another guest on the show, and if I can, I'm going to bring John on and talk about some of these changes that we may have to face, where we think, oh, it's going to be perfect by 4th of July. Everyone is going to be going full tilt. And in my opinion, I don't think it's going to be like that. We have to prepare as business people for somewhere in between and everything.
Yeah, that's for sure. Let's progress to I need to say this is with this past event. Michael was with me. My son Michael. A lot of you have seen him with doing different things. Met him at some of the shows. So Michael was there because he has gone from just strictly doing high school dances and proms for the high school's homecoming proms. He was looking at the idea, well, I'm going to be going to college, and weddings, summer job could be pretty good. So he was with, and we'll get back with Michael, but I want to talk music specifically at last year's events and this year's events. Now, this particular event had a lot of probably 14 to 18, a nice group of 14 to 18-year-old young ladies there that typically would be up on music and asking for some of the more modern music, because they were, the cool kids, and that would. Last year's event, this year's event, and we've talked about this on other shows, is that they're not asking for new music. It was things from 2017, 2018, a couple of 2019 type releases, or older.
That's because everything out right now is sad. Somebody said take your foot off the pedal when it comes to happy music. And we've all just bumped the brakes. It seems like to me there just isn't a lot of really kind of happy, peppy. I mean, you look at Bruno Mars. Everything he's put out pretty much has been somewhat upbeat. And then this latest one of his is pretty much baby making music.
That's what he started with, though. But I will say this in the same respect. I mean, you make that comment, but this is something that I kind of made a notification all through last year with so many of the places that were shut down, which were like the club aspect and stuff like that, that I really think there was a lot of artists that would have released that happy peppy stuff and have completely pulled back on it, which allowed for certain artists like a Dua Lipa to kind of say, screw it, I'm putting my album out and it's happy go lucky and it's not going to be club stuff, but oh well. And it's done well. So I think you're right. That everybody's kind of in this sad mood. So that might have something to do with it. I also think that we've noticed a little bit with TikTok and that, where some of the older stuff has suddenly caught some attention, and it was enough that it started the rabbit hole. Like you hear one you like, and then suddenly now you're down a rabbit hole of 3 or 4 other things from the 70s. And there's also always been kind of a nostalgia moment for some of these. Like even the popular kids will ask for at a school dance, like at a prom, and that will ask for things that are 80s and 90s and which is well before their time, but you kind of go, really? You're messing with me tonight.
No, they know that much of it from TikTok. It's
right.
One of the things when I used to DJ an 80s night, that was the thing that people knew the songs. This was way before all this kind of stuff. They knew the 80s songs from movies. So, that was, one time I was playing Kid and Play and they're like, this isn't 80s. Why are you playing this? And I'm like, whoa, slow down. You remember the movie House Party? And they're like, well, I think I saw that. Well, that's these guys. Oh, okay. And they're perfectly okay with it. So media, like John had talked about a while back, what was the one show? Name That Tune. Things like that, and TikTok, that affects a lot of the ingrained stuff. And that's where I think a lot of them are getting it from, is they're getting a dose of something right in their normal lives, where before, they had a playlist or a radio station that only played this music and nothing else. and just the media platform is changing.
So just to jump to kind of wrap up the music side of it, the hottest song in my children's school with the juniors and seniors is not Top Loader's version of it, but King Harvest.
But what is it?
King Harvest with, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a complete brain for it. I was so worried about getting the artist right. Dancing in the Moonlight. No, Dancing. Yeah, Dancing in the Moonlight.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say Huey Lewis there for a minute when you talk about old music.
Yep, Dancing in the Moonlight is
King Harvest. Yeah,
King Harvest.
That was also, if I'm correct, that one was also on Guardians of the Galaxy.
It was Guardians of the Galaxy,
number 1 or number 2.
But for some reason, that song has just taken off, and it's taken off with the teenagers from their school, and of course their friends at other schools. It's just become this thing, and not the Top Loaders one, it's the original version. So you're talking a song from
1970.
Yeah, there we go. Dancing in the Moonlight. Yeah.
72. Dancing in the Moonlight was 72. The band, they're a French-American rock band. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So we learned.
So the song was from 72. That was before I was born, right?
Yeah. It was. You kids, yeah, guys. Okay, next one. One thing that we got to really play with a little bit this time is the STEM capability with Virtual DJ. If you haven't played with that, that is the coolest thing for a wedding DJ I think you're going to find. And the reason for it is that there's times when you're in a song and you're like playing and they've danced to the first verse and they've gone through the chorus. And you know how it is when you're in the second verse and you're like, okay, I always lose them in the second verse. So here's what you can do is you can go and you can play the first verse. You play the chorus. And then when you get to the end of the chorus, you hit the button on and it cuts the vocal. Now I have the instrumentation to bring in and mix over the next song and get into another song that might have a vocal immediately there. Ice Ice Baby is a prime example of a song where sometimes you can't cut quick enough before there's a vocal. But yet with that STEM technology, and especially the last update, oh my gosh, it's even cleaner than it was last summer, it pulled that vocal out and it's like, Michael's like, holy cats, I didn't realize it was this good. Yeah, it is. So if you're not using it, you got to check it out. And if you don't know what I'm talking about,
I put out a video, what was it, a week ago?
A couple of weeks ago, yeah.
And it was part of the update. And part of the update now is that you can, because remember the stems, they split the song up into 4 things. You have beat, usually it's kick drum, snare, melody, and vocal. Okay, so you can bring those in and out as you want and combine them. But now you can put effects to each of those. So that if you want the song to be going here and you want to put effect just on the vocals, you can put an effect just on the vocals. If you want to scratch in slip mode using just the vocals, you can scratch or backspin in just the vocals, and when you let go, it kicks back in where. Sorry, I might have snapped into the microphone there. Sorry,
you're good.
It comes right back into where it is. So it is what I've always. This is why I always said that when I started doing production and stuff, when we got into the CD and the computer age, I was finally able to DJ the way I hear music because of doing music production. And this is just taking it even further because exactly what you said, John. Song's not going well. Okay, I don't have to worry about an outro. I just, bam, I now have an outro right in the middle of the song if I want.
Yeah, that was so cool because there were a couple of times where we intentionally did that, knowing that I wanted this much of the song, and did it, and boom, gone to the next one.
Especially for those people who use cue points, but maybe don't use all the cue points that they should, or maybe doesn't have any cue points other than the beginning of the song set up. Okay. But so basically it allows you to really get out of that. And I've been using it just playing around here just because it's like exactly like you said, like you're going into it, or you think you have the countdown and you're there and all of a sudden you're like, oh no, new vocals coming in. All right, dump out of the other one real quick. But you want to keep the beat because you don't want to sound like you screwed up. So you just like take the vocal out and everybody's like, they don't think anything of it. Mm-hmm. And probably we are the only one who had ever picked up on it in the first place. But still, we picked up on it.
Yeah, and one of the times we brought a song in, took the vocal and the instrumentation out. So basically you just had the bass line and that coming in. so you had that below the other song, and then as you're going along, you can bring one piece in and bring in the other piece in. You got to play with it, but it's very, very cool. So if you haven't played with it,
and if you have a 4, John, what were you using to DJ with that day?
controller wise,
Yes.
7,000.
Okay. You do know that there's a way to set that up to where your channels 3 and 4, the high, low, mid knobs on channels 3 and 4 can control that. So if you have a 4 channel, that really puts that at your fingertips in, I think, just a magical little way. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
You can do it on a 2 also, because I actually have it set up so the channels that's playing on, my knobs are my setup
Stems as opposed to the high, low, mid. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of capability. So
Magical. And there's
it
more
is.
to
It's
come.
magical. Certainly magical. And that was probably the thing that got Michael the most excited, because he hasn't really played with that. Yeah, he hasn't done a dance since that came out last summer. So for him, that because I don't know if he's updated his virtual DJ on his computer since then. So
He will now.
he will now, that's for sure. So, okay. The next thing is, it seems that the guests, once the dance got going, you can see that people want to play, whether that's to get out and dance and have a good time. And then all of a sudden, it's like they want to play, but they don't want to play. If you follow me, they want to go dance and they want to have fun, but then there's this resistance. Even though there was alcohol in that, you could still see that people just, it wasn't the everything's great. There's this little barrier within them yet that is just having people and why that was important in this particular one is Michael's like, gosh, weddings just aren't as are as crazy as school dances, and it's like, well, there is a level of that, but I think because of people wanting to play, they're going to be there, but the dance floors may not be quite as crazy as they have been in the past. That I think we're going to find ourselves judging the success of an event by the dance floor. And I don't think that we are going to be able to do that for the upcoming period of time, whether that's the whole year, whatever it is I think our success is going to be on engaging people for those times, but just seeing if people are having, I had more people dancing by their chairs, and it wasn't because they were supposed to. It was just that people are, they're singing in the back, 3 buddies were singing in the back type of thing. That determining our success is going to be on the whole room more than it has been in the past, where we could just look at the dance floor and say, hey, the dance floor is full all night, woohoo! And the bride never left the dance floor the whole night, yay! Those types of things didn't happen because some of the people she wanted to talk to weren't going to get close. There was that one group, that one family over here that stayed as a family unit in a corner away from everyone else the whole night, and she went to them to go see them type of situation. So there's people who are going to play, but they're not going to play like they have in the past.
Yeah, I think you hit it nail on the head, is that there's that reluctance to be completely let go. And I think that's also kind of based upon where we were just seeing, where you have some guests that would be a month ago would have said, yeah, we're going to be there. And then a week beforehand, it's like, you know what, maybe I shouldn't. Or even just I was kind of near this person. It's not enough for me to quarantine, but I really don't want to be in a large group. And have that attitude. And I think what's gonna happen is that group that doesn't want to play, that doesn't want to go near the floor, or the family unit that decides to keep by themselves, is they're not to the point of saying, you know what, I need to stay home. But if I go and I keep to myself, then that's safer than if I was going full in.
Mm-hmm.
So just like you have that complete gamut outside of the wedding and the event industry attendees, you're going to have that inside, from from not going at all to changing minds, to being reluctant to come near the floor, to, you know what, screw it all, I'm getting on the floor and I'm having a good time. And when I've talked to some of the couples that I met for some of my spring weddings, one of the questions I ask, scale of 1 to 10, how much dancing do you think you're going to have? And I said, and I kind of joke with this, is, let's talk pre-COVID and now what we're dealing with. And a lot of you see, well, I before I would have said like an 8, and now I'm thinking like a 5 or a 6. And you can see they already are thinking in their head of that change. So I think when you talk about, we just really can't judge our dance floors keep in mind, our couples aren't going to either. All right. Our couples are not going to judge the success of their wedding based upon how many people are on the dance floor, because they already know that there's that reluctance to be full in. So their expectations are different as well.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting how that
unknown.
Yeah, it's unknown, and it's going to be an interesting thing to see how that evolves throughout the year. If it will get more prevalent, or if it will just slowly decline as more the comfort level returns.
Here's something to think about for those who have weddings a lot. You may have that difference from wedding to wedding, to where you might have one wedding that parties it up, and the next wedding is super conservative. You don't know.
Yep.
I also think it also depends upon what you're hearing numbers wise. So for example, we talked about, even though the vaccines and but the numbers are starting to creep up again during that month, you might have more reluctance, and then either it doesn't get much attention, or the numbers are starting to fall back, and suddenly now things are party time again. Kind of just that feeling. And I would say that as we get closer to summer, I would also think that that's going to have a big impact too. Just the warm weather feelings, that kind of affects how people think. I think there is going to be a little bit more of the looseness then. I could be completely wrong, probably will be, but my guess.
Yeah, and I'm guessing the vaccine and things are going to play a huge role in that.
Like John and I were talking about earlier today, that again, different areas. John qualifies in his area for it. It'll be months before I qualify. Months probably.
Well, it's because they'll get down to the 40 and under pretty soon.
As if. And Dan, you talked about people wearing masks. Again, it depends where you're at, because everywhere I go, everyone wears masks. I actually saw someone at Walmart on Saturday that didn't have one on, and it surprised me. Because like everywhere you go, everybody wears masks.
And that's what I'm saying. But I've seen like grocery store, Walmart, even just like even the pet store. Like I was kind of surprised. Like it was where it wasn't a lot, but 2 months ago, if I had gone into those same places, I wouldn't have seen anybody. I may have seen people not wearing it correctly, but I wouldn't have seen anybody just full out not wearing it. I'm seeing more like, I'm not wearing it at all.
Yeah.
Like forget it. Or, occasionally I'll get the ones where they'll put it on as soon as they walk past the first person at the door, they take it off. Whatever happens to be the case, I'm not seeing it anywhere on them.
Yeah, the grocery store here, I actually saw stop people and say, you have to wear a mask, and they would give them a mask.
Yeah, that's
again, it depends upon places. You might have venues that are really pushing, other ones. I actually talked to someone who is an employee at Sheetz. I don't know if Sheetz are up in your area, John. It's like a chain gas station where you can get food and all kinds of stuff. And employees are told, if they see someone without a mask, not to say anything, to presume it is because of health issues.
That's what.
So even though they have a giant sign on the door, you must wear a mask. The employees are told not to say anything.
Yeah, and that's what every small town, rural Minnesota store has. Must wear masks because of the governor, but if you're not, we'll assume it's because of medical reasons. Yeah. So there I am with going in there, and I don't have a medical reason, so I'm not, or I've got one.
But you're gonna have your card.
Yeah, there will be a card.
That could be something magical, which again, I'm going to talk about that Wednesday night. Like I said, hopefully, and we'll get into all that kind of weird stuff, because it's getting weird out there.
It could definitely. So moving to the next one, let's kind of wrap up with Michael. Now, Michael went along with this one because we've got a couple of opportunities for him to go with and kind of shadow. I was hoping he was going to be able to take over and actually do some not so much mixing, but at least be in charge of the music side of it. But one of the things he was able to see is that there was a lot of, we had kind of our plan of, doing a set, and then somebody came up, a parent came up and says, hey, can you do this next? Hey, the bride came up and says, hey, can you do this? The groom came up and said, it was one of those nights where there was consistently something that was being thrown out at us, the last minute change of some sort, the 180, if you want to call it that, I don't know, however, but they come up and, hey, can we do this next? It's like, oh, no problem. And as I was telling Michael, it's like, I could have you DJing right now, but now if you were, I would have to go and try to explain to you these 10 things that I'm going to do in the next 30 seconds to get ready for that. And it just didn't work out. But it was good for him to see that not only does it happen once in a while, it happened time and time and time again with this particular event. So that was a kind of a neat lesson. Another with Michael being there with me is dealing with money. And this is something when you've got, we still occasionally have the dollar dance that happens here. Sometimes they will auction the garter, but sometimes there's cash involved with coming off that dance floor. And this has been a rule of mine from the beginning on, is that we never touch money. We never touch cash as the DJ. And Michael was like, well, why not? If you're going to, you can help them out. It's like, nope. Just because there's that one time that somebody will say, oh, I saw the DJ had, he was holding on to the dollar dance money and I bet he pocketed it. Never touch money. If they're going to come up and they hand it to you, it's like literally hands back and give it to groom, best man, anyone else, but you never touch it. Even if it's on the floor. Can I have somebody come over here and pick this up, please? If you have to, you have to. So that was actually a good experience. Another thing that I did not realize that DJs in our area are selling, and if you do this is probably not a good thing to be doing, is that they're saying you don't have to tip us, but we want half the dollar dance money. I had never heard that one before.
DJs be shady.
Yeah,
the bride came up and she had what brought the conversation on. She had the money from the dollar dance, and she's like, "Okay, so I got to give half of this to you." It's like, what? First off, I'm not touching any money. Secondly, is what? So, if you do that, probably not a really good idea. It's sketchy.
Yeah.
It
kind of goes right out almost into the whole. I mean, like, a mandatory tip is almost like what that comes across as.
Yeah.
And wow.
Yeah, if you're the person who does that, I'm giving you the eye.
Yeah. So that was kind of. So we had a good conversation about that also.
How is Michael? I don't want to jump off him real quick,
please.
but you were talking before about him wanting to go different direction in life when it comes to DJing, but is starting to thinking he might, at least for a while, embrace the wedding DJ side of it.
I think he's going to do that, and my guesstimate is he's going to do that for the next couple of years with college. He'll be graduating here this spring. He has a good group of proms lined up. A couple of the schools were moving dates to get on his schedule. So he's got his proms lined up, and I think that I think what he viewed is he thought that this wedding that we did was probably going to be one of the weakest ones that he will be involved with. No, it's not. There have been much. There weren't a lot of dancers, but we had a variety of ages, and they would dance a little bit to things. It was just constantly, 2 songs, different genre, 2 songs to and then off to another genre. There wasn't a 4-song set, and we've talked about that. That's just this new generation. But in this particular case, you had, the 20-year-olds, then you had the 60-year-olds, then you had the 10 or the teenagers, and you were all back and forth, and there really wasn't a lot of everyone on the floor at the same time situations.
It's a whole different ball game, especially than what you would expect with like school dances. Like,
yeah, exactly.
School dances have their own complexity. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not trying to say that school dances are easy, but when it comes to music, you kind of have one pigeonhole spot, and that's it. In weddings, you need to be able to mix across genres and years and decades and that kind of thing, and somehow make it all flow.
Exactly, and I think that's kind of an eye-opening thing, but it was really kind of cool when we had a gal in her 60s come up there, and she's like, "Hey, can you play some Motown?" Well, that's become kind of a pet area of music for Michael, that he's gotten into that. So when she came up there, he's like, "Yeah, that's kind of cool. I can." And he was throwing out some different songs and such, and we did it, and that went over very well with that age group. They just absolutely loved that concept. So I think when he has a good wedding that where the people are just ready to go and are going to be bouncing off the walls, and we've had those weddings. There may not be many of them in 2021. I just don't know. I'm hoping that we get another month in, we'll be great again. I think once he has that, he'll never probably enjoy the wedding more than he would a high school dance, and I get that because there's some of the high schools, especially when you're doing homecoming and the kids are coming in there and they're just crazy first dance of the year and they're just bouncing off the walls from, whatever you do. As we used to say back, 25 years ago, you could fart into the microphone and the kids would be like, ah, it's the way it could have been. So I think he's going to appreciate. I wouldn't surprise me though once he graduates from college that he walks away from weddings. Once he has things paid for, and wouldn't surprise me. There's one more thing I wanted to do that was kind of we had opportunity to talk about in a couple of situations, and it kind of somewhat relates to the money a little bit, is the idea of at the event having to be professional at all times and not be the person who's on the microphone making some weird comment, some creepy comment, because there were a couple of other one of the guys was going in, he was using the microphone and he went off to take the microphone to someone, and he's a DJ he from years ago. So he was very comfortable and he's a radio guy. And he was on the microphone. He made a couple of little things that just were like a little cringy. And it was a great example of like, okay, so that's something that you don't want to do. You've got to, you want to have a level of professionalism in what you do. And sometimes that means you're not going to say something, that comes to mind. It's like, oh, this would be funny to say. No, you don't say it. And it came to examples of how to relate to. The bride comes up and says, hey, John. And it's like, whatever it is, the answer is yes. Whatever you want to do type of thing, that it's not I really don't want to do with that because that's not going to do. It's that I'm going to treat her as the boss with respect and really be there to serve her in as professional way as possible. Another thing, and this may sound sexist, and it might be, but it's something that this is a reality, is the bridesmaids all had very deep diving fronts on their dresses. And as a male, that can get really weird and really creepy. Just even as you're making eye contact and if you're kind of looking around a little bit, you don't want to be that guy who's like, all I did was stare at my breasts the whole night long. That's kind of a situation. That happens. And I've heard stories of DJs who have gotten in trouble because of that. And it really became a great example of, it's like, Michael, when you're doing things at events like this, is you're making eye contact. And this is why eye contact is so important, is that I'm communicating with him or her, but we're making here, as opposed to, kind of the drifting around, and all of a sudden then you just happen, as your eyes are going across and somebody gets offended because you're looking at something. Eye contact, keeping it professional, being courteous and helpful as at any level you possibly can, are really what's going to be the keys to him being successful and liked, I guess, being the person that people like when it comes to this. So those are some of the things. Some of the things there.
Joan and I were both diving into hitting a button. I hit it first.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it change yet, but okay.
You won't. You may not.
There it is. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. It's they are, like Dan said, they're so totally different animals. It's not even funny. And the other thing is also that, I've always noticed that no matter what, whether it's be a wedding, school dance, bars, clubs, you have to like the thing you're doing, and you could hate what someone else absolutely loves, and that's okay. So you just got to find what works for you. That's something that you're going to learn over time.
And he might even, or you, whoever, might end up finding that, tastes change as you go throughout. And so, for example, he might find a situation where he enjoys doing, the school dances and that during that season, which really is, for about a month or so in the fall and about a month or so in the spring. And then the rest of the time caters to a particular style for weddings. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the one thing, depending upon obviously where he decides to land, he has an opportunity to create himself a very specific style that could do the, and I don't want to say like a school dance wedding, but you know what I mean? Like that style, but in the wedding format that could blow up huge for him, and suddenly now enjoys weddings because it's on his terms. You know what I mean? Like he's already established himself in a way that makes that work. And it doesn't take us long if you think about some of the big names in our industry nationwide who all have that kind of niche format that allows them to succeed. That's not your typical cookie cutter DJ, and it's also not just your, I don't want to say besides being a cookie cutter, but they set up a very unique personality to it that flows through the music and through the atmosphere that is club or chic or, backwoods. I mean, like, everybody has that ability to kind of focus that can make it work for them.
And I think that's one of the things, Michael was seeing the number of requests that came up. We used Brandon's instant DJ request system. And that's actually my last one here. And I'm going to hit that one and we'll kind of drift back to Michael. Instant DJ request, you can go out to that's my son Brandon, college student up here in NDSU, created that. So we made a flyer, had the QR code, they scanned it on their phone, they could send a request right up to the DJ booth without coming up there. And there were some people coming up yet. We had about a dozen requests come through, somewhere in that ballpark. The interesting thing is that we had a couple of Latin families there. I believe two. I believe there were two different families, and they were actually able to send up requests. Because for me, it's very tough to understand some of the Spanish song names. It just for some reason, some of the tonalities I don't catch it very well. So when they come up, they typed them up and sent them in. It's like, oh, I got the spelling, because the system automatically, once they type the fifth letter, it guesses. And once it clicks, yep, this is the song I want. So it was spelled right, and it was there, and I could do a search and found it. That alone, being able to help with some of the guests that maybe I couldn't hear that well or didn't understand, is huge. I was like, yeah, hey, this was great. Now I could play. Instead of saying, after they say it 4 times and I feel stupid, it's like, oh, sorry, you don't have it. I have no idea what they were saying, but I just played that card. Didn't have to do that. So that was pretty cool. So instant DJ request.
Some DJs hate having a phone shoved in their face for that reason, because I DJ a lot of multi-ethnicities, up around Pitt and all that. The college students are from everywhere, that they can show me a phone and I can be able to type it in exactly. So that
helps.
So the service he's making is that exactness, but also with the proper distancing for right now, and also for people who get shy,
Yeah, for sure, because they came up and they're showing me their phone. I'm like, yeah, go a little closer, little closer. Yeah. So yeah, I think the big thing, jumping back to Michael with the music and such, is that he enjoyed the school thing where he could have his set of songs, and he had some sets he put together. And I think that was one of the things that he looked at the wedding, is that sets just, you can't be you can maybe have a couple of preset mixes, short mixes, but you're not going to have a half an hour mix put together. It just doesn't happen. And, that's something he's going to have to come to a conclusion where he's at. And if he's going to be, that could be the thing that bounces him out of weddings here in 2 years.
Got to find what you like. That's all.
Exactly.
Takes time sometimes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're now with Easter coming up next weekend and such, we're off for a couple of weeks, and then we start proms. Some proms are outdoors.
He'll be in his glory for a bit. So
yeah, it'll be an interesting spring here, and see how everything comes together for us. So, but yeah, so that was it. That's kind of my little notes I took from the wedding.
Cool.
Well, I'm glad for your sake in 2 aspects. I'm glad you had the opportunity to be out. I'm glad you had the opportunity to play. And from the sounds of it, a positive experience. I mean, and not that I was expecting otherwise, but in the gist of everything, it sounded like everything was very positive. So I'm glad for your sake that happened, and obviously more positives to come.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. As a starting point, it wasn't the killer party. It wasn't, but it was a good day. People had some fun. It was like a training wheels wedding type of a situation. We have to start somewhere. This was our first step. And I say us as not only as me as a DJ, but the guests also. It was their first wedding back, and people are going to get their legs under them and get those sea legs and be ready to go. Hopefully, by the time we get into the end of May, June, that they'll be back to what we're used to or what we had considered normal.
All right.
Anything else, gentlemen?
Not about that.
No, Wednesday night, music and mixing is back. I took a week off last week because it was spring break. You have to do that. And it's either going to be open question night, or if I can get the guest that I sent a message to, I'm going to have a couple people on, and we're going to talk more about the changes in a little bit more detail of things when it comes to the whole opening up. How it's going to open up, what is going to be expected of you maybe to open up. I saw people in the chat tonight here making comments of things that they're going to do as selling points. That's exactly the kind of stuff we're going to touch Wednesday, if I can get them on, because John is one of them I want to have on, and I also want to have another friend of mine who kind of sees the whole big, long thing. So I want to get a good perspective of this in both a legal and a salesman point of view and all of this. I kind of want to look at it that way, and I'm hoping that we can. So one way or the other, 9 p.m. Wednesday night.
Excellent. Gus had asked for the request link, Instant DJ Request. That's request plural. Instant DJ Request plural.com. Put that in the chat. I don't know if it's going to make it out to Facebook, but you guys can go check that out. And again, that full disclosure, that's my son Brandon. He created that last summer to be something that can be used with your cell phone. They don't have to download anything. You don't get their information, so you don't know who made the request per se. But then for some people, they don't have to have an app, and they're kind of like, yeah, and then my phone number is protected, and so it's got its advantages and such. And just check it out if you guys are interested.
Nice.
Yeah.
And coming up here in a few minutes, go ahead and give the plug for Howie.
Oh yeah,
Chill Room. He's got Lou Paris on tonight, and for those of you that don't know Lou's one of those guys. It's very versed, very technical, knows a lot of things about a lot of different things. I don't know if they're going to talk. He was I have my booth. He just built a new booth of sorts, and so has put that together. There's a video out there. So, but check out Howie and Lou and everything going on in the chill room. And John dropped into the chat, but DJNTV.com/chill is how you go. And you just kind of hang back and watch. And then when it's all said and done, you come back on camera and you have some fun.
And it'll be a good time for everyone. And for those of you who can't make it tonight, by the way, we record those and we put those up later in the week. So you guys will still be able to see it. It's just, if you want to see it live tonight while they're recording, you got to jump into the DJNTV.com/chill. I think it's time we got to go so we can get our way up.
All right. Well, on that note, guys, thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to join us. Hopefully you learned a lot from what John's wedding and from Michael's experience with it. And of course, MJ and I just kind of BSing about the whole thing the whole night long. But no matter what, we do want to thank you. We are so glad to be back, and we'll see you next Monday.
Bye, everybody.